Here's your shot at winning $1,000. Text the national keyword PAY right now to 95819. That's PAY to 95819. We'll text you back to confirm your entry. Data and messaging rates may apply. Please don't text and drive. It's $5K a day on WMAL. Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:07. It's O'Connor and Company, Monday, the 6th day of October. Launch it into the second week of the government shutdown with maybe some signs of movement there based on what we heard on the Sunday shows. We shall see as the day develops. Certainly the administration isn't blinking. Republicans aren't budging, and Democrats are going to start feeling pressure on why they want to keep the government shut down. Interestingly, I think that might be the Spanberger campaign in Virginia who might be wanting to see this thing go away. She has not been able to exploit it for political gain. If anything, if you're a federal worker or a contractor and you're affected negatively by the government shutdown, you should take it up with Spanberger and ask why she and her party are insisting on the shutdown. We'll have more discussion of that as the morning develops. Also at 8:05, John Lott has some new information about how the FBI still hasn't really cleaned up their crime statistics. And at 8:35, the chairman of the Republican Party of Virginia, Mark Peake. I'm Larry O'Connor, and I'm rocking out with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
And we always rock out at this time of the week with our regular guest, Joe diGenova, former U.S. Attorney to the District of Columbia, our legal analyst. Good morning, Joe. Good to have you as always.
Good morning. Great to be with you guys.
So we earlier in the program, we played the infamous audio of Chuck Schumer telling Brett Kavanaugh that he was about to feel the whirlwind on him because of his judicial opinions on the Supreme Court. And then, of course, 2 years later, a man was arrested outside of Kavanaugh's home with a plot to assassinate the justice, along with kidnapping and torturing his wife and children. He pled guilty to the crime of attempted assassin of a Supreme Court justice, a crime that carries a 30-year to life sentence. But Joe, on Friday, this man was sentenced to just 8 years by a Biden-appointed judge because this man has determined to identify as a woman now. And the judge said that she took into account the Trump administration's policy of imprisoning men in men's prisons. And I've laid out the facts. I would love for you to sort of start commenting on that and tell us the legal rationale for this and whether a judge even has the kind of freedom to be able to take the law into her own hands like this.
Well, this judge, U.S. District Court Judge Deborah Boardman in Maryland, decided that she was going to basically fix the whole world in one case. Now, judges in sentencing have wide discretion. That's been recognized since the beginning of time. What they don't have the power to do is make things up. And I think that what Judge Boardman did in this case is make things up. First of all, it's pretty obvious that Judge Boardman was absolutely transfixed, if you will forgive the phraseology, transfixed by the fact that Nicholas Roski became Sophie Roski overnight, pending sentence. It's pretty obvious that this transformation from male to female in name only was done purposely to affect a left-leaning judge, and it worked. So it was a good stratagem. But the Court of Appeals, I think, is going to be very, very dubious of this sentence. This is an 8-year sentence. It should have been a life sentence. This guy wanted to kill a justice of the Supreme Court. This sentence has no deterrence value whatsoever. And as a result, I think that the Court of Appeals is going to reverse this sentence and send it back for resentencing.
Attorney General Pam Bondi has already announced that they will be repealing this sentence. When there's a sentencing process like this, the mere fact that this person now identifies as a woman and will be imprisoned with fellow men, is that enough evidence to suggest that leniency is somehow warranted? I mean, when I look at the numbers, when I look at the stats, it appears to me that imprisoned women suffer much more harm by putting a man identifying as a woman amongst them as cellmates and jailmates than evidence that a man identifying as a woman feels any sort of persecution being in a men's prison. Either way, isn't it incumbent on the defendant to present that evidence in court, or can the judge just leap to this conclusion without evidence?
Well, you're absolutely right, Larry. And, of course, this is the flaw in this decision. She was a judge. This is a result in search of a reason. She had made up her mind long before Nicholas became Sophie. Boy, what a name for a book. When Nicholas becomes Sophie, I mean, what she did was, this was results sentencing. This had nothing to do with the record in the case. And I think the Court of Appeals is going to reverse this, because this is an illogical sentence. It's clearly a political sentence. And I think it ignores the entire record of danger and threats to the courts. And it's quite amazing that a sitting district court judge thinks it's okay to try to kill a Supreme Court justice. Now, if that isn't politics, I don't know what is.
Well, I know it doesn't seem to make sense, but I will say, in the world of, for instance, these are men, trans women competing in women's sports, women are expected to set aside their feelings. And they're using that logic with these men going to women's jails. These women that are in prison should just set aside their feelings or fears of being raped by a man. And so it's actually very consistent. We've seen this with these trans activists, that women are supposed to set aside all their feelings of discomfort and feelings of fear. For instance, a man walking in and changing clothes in front of a young girl. That young girl was told, change faster or just deal with your feelings. So it's actually pretty consistent.
Well, it certainly is. And let's do a hypothetical. Suppose a judge said, okay, I accept the fact that you now think that you are a woman, and you've tried to establish that by changing your name from Nicholas to Sophie. So what we're going to do is, before we put you in a woman's prison, we're going to castrate you. Yep. That's part of the sentence. Yep. So what do you think would happen then?
Right.
Yeah, it's a fascinating hypothetical.
Resolution to that problem.
This does get a bill. By the way, this on top, and stay with us because we want to ask you about the Jay Jones story out of Virginia and the insanity of his violent rhetoric against Republicans. But this all adds to sort of the narrative we keep hearing since the Charlie Kirk assassination, that both sides need to calm down on the violent rhetoric, and most of it is really coming from the right. I mean, forgive me, but I'm having trouble finding incidents where the political right is engaging in this kind of violence, like trying to assassinate a Supreme Court justice, or the kind of text messages that Jay Jones engaged in.
Cognitive dissonance is the order of the day in the Democrat Party. They just don't care about the logic of anything. This guy Jones is a clear and present danger to the rule of law in Virginia. If the Democrats do not remove him from the ballot, it's an absolute unbelievable scar on their party. But it just doesn't seem they care about that. They only care about winning.
Joe, hold that thought. We'll explore it more. Remove him from the ballot. He hasn't lost a single endorsement, let alone calling him for remove himself from the ballot. We'll get more with Joe diGenova and his delightful laugh in a moment.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939. Your next $1,000 could be one text away. It's $5K a day on WMAL.
Jay Jones running as the Democrat nominee for Attorney General in Virginia. Last week we thought his only real downside, one of the major downsides that is, and the biggest scandal was the fact that he was caught speeding at 116 miles an hour on a Virginia highway, sentenced to 1,000 hours of community service, and instead served 500 hours of community service to his own political action committee. And that was certainly fine with the corrupt system of justice in Virginia. But now it turned very dark, Joe diGenova, as we have learned private text messages that he sent unwarranted and unsolicited to a Republican, fantasizing about the assassination of Speaker Gilbert in Virginia and his children. And he still, by the way, hasn't really taken responsibility for it or apologized. And as I just mentioned, Joe, not one Democrat has withdrawn their endorsement. Should he win this race, God forbid, how does this compromise him as the Attorney General for Virginia? How is he expected to carry out his duties in any sort of fair and judicious way as the chief law enforcement officer. If I'm a Republican in Virginia and I start getting investigated by his office, I feel like I've got a pretty good case of bias on behalf of the Attorney General.
Well, he's clearly someone with problems. He's a troubled person. Whether or not he's mentally ill is for a court to determine. But the issue is, as a political candidate, people have a right to assess his mental capability in voting for him. The voters can decide whether or not he is mentally stable and should be a public official. What's interesting is that the concept of being the Attorney General of a state carries with it not only legal authority, but moral authority. This man comes with baggage of such weight that he has absolutely no moral authority whatsoever. And a man who can't apologize is a very dangerous man.
Joe, it's also just appalling how he's not lost any endorsements. No Democrats have come out and said he should step down. In fact, Senator Mark Warner said the comments attributed to Jay Jones. So they're casting some sort of doubt on the texts themselves, which Jay Jones admitted. He's admitted to that. He's owned them. So, what are your thoughts on how Democrats are just standing behind him? Probably not surprised.
Mark Warner, it's pretty obvious, has stayed too long at the fair. He's been around so long that he really has lost all perspective and apparently any sense of decency whatsoever.
Yes.
In the past, he would have condemned this, but he's not now, and that's because the Democrats are united in fighting for 2026 and 2028, and the facts and the law and morality be damned. They have set in motion a full-scale war against the president, his cabinet, Republicans around the country, and conservatives, and they don't care. And this case is the best example of how they are so committed to this strategy to defeat the Trump agenda that they will forgive anything. And they don't care about what the people think. And they're rolling the dice on this. And I pray to God that the voters of Virginia are smart enough to figure this out.
Joe, could you help us out with the latest scene here in Portland now, where National Guard have been sent in to protect a federal facility there from the rampaging Antifa mobs that the city of Portland seems to be just fine with accommodating in their violence and vandalism, et cetera. There's now a district judge, Karen Immergut. I'm pretty sure she looks exactly like the woman who changed the Cracker Barrel logo. Who's now trying to keep 200 members of Oregon's National Guard from being federalized by President Trump. Didn't this already happen a couple of months ago in California? And didn't Trump already win these cases? Why does he win with a federal appeal or going to the Supreme Court, and then he has to go through this every time he does it? Isn't there some precedence here?
There is, and what's happening is these activist judges are ignoring that precedent and trying to make false distinctions in their individual case. Let's be very clear. The president is sending in the National Guard to protect federal agents, federal facilities, and federal property. That is clearly authorized by the law. There is no doubt about that. And the federal judge who prohibited this is clearly wrong. There should be a summary reversal by the Ninth Circuit or the Supreme Court. And remember, Gavin Newsom filed a lawsuit and got another federal judge in California to block the president from sending California National Guardsmen to Oregon to do the same duty of protecting federal property and federal agents.
So at what point does Chief Justice Roberts have to step in? And, I mean, does he have the power to instruct federal judges, enough with this, enough? The executive branch is the executive branch, and they're moving forward with these things. We've already ruled on this.
Well, the answer is he doesn't alone, because that's not part of his management responsibility because it involves cases. But the Supreme Court as a body can send some very strong messages. And both Gorsuch and Kavanaugh have written recently that precedent by the Supreme Court when they rule, even on their emergency docket, that is the law. Federal courts must follow it. And it's very interesting. This Judge Young, who wrote this 197-page opinion the other day ranting about Trump, is the same judge that the Supreme Court slapped down and Kavanaugh criticized. It's the same judge who apologized for not understanding that emergency rulings were precedent. What's going on here is a complete and utter resistance by the federal judiciary, and the Republicans have missed a marvelous opportunity. You will recall that NBC did an interview anonymously with 14 federal judges who complained about Trump, the Justice Department, and the Trump approach. No effort was made by the Chief Justice or anybody else to find out who those 12 judges were. And the answer is there needs to be a motion filed by the federal government in every case in which the U.S. is a party demanding that the judge put on the record whether or not he or she was on that anonymous call with NBC.
That would be, and while they're at it, maybe they could also get to the bottom of the leak of the Dobbs decision, but I'm asking too much now. Christmas is coming. Joe diGenova, always great to talk with you, my friend. Thank you, sir. Great stuff as always.
Thank you.
623.
You're not going to want to miss this. This is a really disturbing story out of Chicago involving the Border Patrol and the local Chicago police. We'll give you an update. Keep it here, 7:30.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:37 as our morning charge is on here on O'Connor and Company. Coming up at 8:05, John Lott will be our guest. And at 8:35, the chairman of the Republican Party of Virginia, Mark Peake. The latest on the Spanberger race, the Jay Jones scandal, all that coming up. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Yeah, Jay Jones. Isn't Jay Jones in favor of gun control, by the way?
Yes, of course.
But he wants to, unless you're controlling the gun to put 2 bullets in the head of a Republican.
I'm waiting for Mom's demand to come out against him. I'll keep waiting.
Full endorsements across the board. Yeah. A little bit of a fantasy life that Jay Jones has.
Yeah.
Not the kind that most Democrats in Virginia have with their fantasy life where they, do porn online. And
right. So gross.
His is a more violent nature.
Then assault that husband they did porn with and then go to jail. Okay. All right. Sorry. We go on and on.
You really can't. Virginia's really something else right now for the Democrats. And they're still leading in the polls. Yep. Meanwhile, over in Chicago, a remarkable story. Bill Malugin of Fox News Channel is reporting. ICE officers are conducting exercises in Chicago going after gang members and violent criminal aliens who are facing deportation, doing the job that the Biden administration never did, and helping to clean up the streets, by the way, since these are criminals. And, of course, the protesters are out in force. And Chicago Police Department is doing nothing, absolutely nothing, to stop the Antifa types from getting in the way of these federal officers conducting their appointed constitutional business. Here's what's really interesting. This latest is a photograph of a police squad car's data screen. They all have these screens that where they get their orders and memos and various crises and things that are going on. And the screenshot that was taken on October 4th, so that would be Saturday, in the middle of the afternoon at a time when ICE agents were surrounded by a large crowd of protesters. They called for help and assistance from the Chicago Police Department. And here is the message that came to every squad car in Chicago. Police Chief of Patrol, no units will respond to this.
So the call for help, and I think it's also interesting, the call for help came at 12:28. They took nearly 6 minutes to respond with Chief of Patrol, no units will respond. So clearly working this out and then deciding, no, we won't respond. We will leave these Border Patrol agents to be harmed or even killed by these Antifa protesters.
Border Patrol agent, ICE agent, called 911. And the message from 911 to all the police units was, caller is one of approximately 30 armed Border Patrol ICE agents who are being surrounded by a large crowd of people requesting CPD assistance. You're right, Julie. 6 minutes. So, of course, they ran this up the chain of command.
Yeah.
They got the call. They checked with the desk. The desk ran it all the way up to the chief of patrol. And the response was, let them be. No units respond. Let them fend for themselves.
This is, this gets really complicated, Larry. We back the blue. We are definitely supporters of law enforcement. But when you have a law enforcement agency that is so corrupt, that is so corrupted by politics and by these leftists running Chicago, it breaks my heart to actually be so angry at police officers like this, but they let these ICE agents fend for themselves. There is no excuse.
It's the police chief, and the police chief is a politician. This is why whenever they try to, strip Mike Chapman in Loudoun County of any sort of authority as the duly elected sheriff, they go, well, we need a Loudoun County chief of police in our own police department. This is why, because they want to be able to control them politically and tell them what laws to enforce and what laws not to enforce. And Chicago, I think it's fair to say, is a pretty corrupt political town.
Well, I'll feel a lot better when a lot of low-level police officers come forward and as leakers, and I think some of them have.
Well,
and
this was leaked. Certainly, this was leaked.
Yes.
And in fact, Fox two longtime ranking Chicago police sources sharply rejected the department's assertion that officers responded to calls to help ICE agents who were rammed and surrounded by protesters on Saturday.
They're saying they did,
telling Fox News the official statement is, in their words, cover their bleep, bull bleep. Yeah, because ICE was like, where were you? We called you. And the Chicago Police Department said, oh, no, we responded. We just got, traffic was really bad on the loop, man. You know how it is. And so somebody did come through. Here, cut 7 here. Listen to the audio of the dispatch that was taken. This was while this – and by the way, understand something. These were ICE agents. They were armed. They're going to do what they have to do to protect themselves. They're surrounded by all these protesters. One of them rammed the police or the ICE car, and that woman was armed, by the way. The protester was armed. So it's like Chicago police, for political purposes, through the chain of command, decided, oh, no, better for this to escalate and turn into what kind of carnage could show up. Take a listen to the audio, cut 7.
And one is for the hit and run. This guy fled from the scene at 37th Place in Kedzie. It all started at I-55 in Kedzie. Then they fled southbound at Kedzie, where that offending vehicle crashed. They ran the federal agent off the road. They fled on foot westbound 37th Place from Kedzie. It was a male Hispanic younger wearing all black clothing.
All right. So that's your typical dispatch, and they're waiting for response and all the details. And, of course, ICE agents did the professional thing, gave the details, wanted local police to come in and do their job. Now listen to this, cut 7A.
So the chief of patrol, clear everybody up. We're not responding over there.
Radio check. And again, per the chief of patrol, we have all the units that per 999. Chief of Patrol said all units clear out from there. We're not sending anybody over to that location.
62, we're going to clear out as soon as we can, Spud. We're like locked in over here, so we're going to do the best we can to get out of here.
Clear out. We're not responding over there. Clear out. Everybody clear out. And that comes from the mayor, comes from the city council. Chicago is broken. And this, listen, there may be some constitutional out here. Maybe local police aren't obligated constitutionally to assist federal law enforcement. But once again, this is an example of a Democrat-run city that is already violent enough, and they are making decisions that will just increase the violence. They want the violence.
It's been run for 40 years, Larry. Problems you see in Chicago, it is a Democrat-run city for decades and decades and decades. They own this. The Democrats own the problems in Chicago.
744.
Mark Levin, weekdays 6 till 9 on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
Julie, we had a Critter News segment on Thursday that I believe you were listening to when I was on with Trey Lucas.
Yes.
We were talking about Jane Goodall. This is the woman who died recently, and she was, praised left and right for being some sort of ape expert or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I pointed out that she had been speaking on the record publicly that she's basically like Thanos, the evil villain in the Marvel Endgame super comics, where she wants to snap her fingers and get rid of half of the world's population because there are too many humans on the planet.
That's right. Right.
I don't believe that kind of ideology should be celebrated, even upon a woman's death at the age of 91. It should be pointed out. And not many people talked about that. But so we got gentle criticism for sullying her legacy and reputation by pointing out her problematic stance on things like that.
Yes. I believe we are about to be canceled again.
You also, we're going to get canceled again. We're fine with that.
Yeah.
We've got more. You also, by the way, criticized me for confusing her with the Sigourney Weaver character in Gorillas in the Nest.
Diane Fossey.
Right. Is that her name?
Who was killed in like 1985 by a poacher. Right. I believe in Uganda, which
has nothing to do with Jane Goodall.
All you cared about was Sigourney Weaver looked hot in that movie.
She did look hot,
so
even in the mist.
It didn't matter who she was portraying. You just wanted to bring up,
how hot Sigourney Weaver was in Alien, and Ghostbusters,
and by extension,
and The Year of Living Dangerously, and I could go on and on.
The Year of that's a great film. I watched that about. It's funny. I watch that about every 5 years. The Year of Living Dangerously.
Mel Gibson and Sigourney Weaver.
Talk about hot.
In their prime, in the sweaty heat of Indonesia,
I'm sweating,
fighting the communists, taking a bubble bath together. Anyway, back to Jane Goodall. Jane Goodall,
we have to,
who died last week. And she's being celebrated. She left a little message. Don't you ever wish you could do this? It's like, I would play this after I'm dead. I'm going to settle scores with everyone.
I make a note every day.
You do it every morning.
These are the people who are not allowed at my funeral. I seriously have a list.
Here's cut 12. This Netflix is releasing this now after her death. Take a listen.
Do you have people that you don't like?
Absolutely, there are people I don't like. And I would like to put them on one of Musk's spaceships and send them all off to the planet he's sure he's going to discover.
Would he be one of them?
Oh, absolutely. He'd be the host.
Yeah.
And you can imagine who I'd put on that spaceship.
Who?
Along with Musk would be Trump and some of Trump's real supporters. And then I would put Putin in there. And I would put President Xi. I'd certainly put Netanyahu in there. And his far-right government.
Are we sure this isn't Jay Jones actually speaking?
Yeah, exactly. Endorsed by Mark Warner.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is the problem. When you elevate the life of animals and equate them and put them on the same level as human beings, then it becomes much easier to dehumanize and wish death upon humans and have it just be a casual, oh, by the way. Thank you very much.
Well, look, she sounds, she was, it was Saint Jane Goodall, but she really had a dark side, and that is she really did believe that humans were basically like a bacteria, that there's everything wrong in the world was because of humans, and that, chimps who, scratch their own butts and,
eat their own feces.
Eat their own feces are like somehow superior.
Will rip your face off given the chance if they're hungry and they think that you have food that they want.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, this is what environmental. She's it's sort of Greta, right? She's Greta-esque in hating the human species, wanting them gone, and especially problematic humans who have free thought and say what they feel and want. And she didn't like that.
Jane Goodall, loving her apes, not so much human beings. By the way, remember that scene with Sigourney Weaver in Ghostbusters when she greets Bill Murray at the door and she's just wearing like the see-through silk thing? And
Larry.
It's 7:55.